Hello and welcome to Anatomy of Sex. I'm your host, Melanie Studley.
What's up, guys? My name is Seth Studley. I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist, and today we're talking about solo masturbation. Yes or no? We're answering a listener question, so dive in, guys. Let's go. Today's show is brought to you by getfaithful.com/anatomy of marriage. Do you have a counselor? Is the answer no? What? The answer should be yes, you guys. Go to getfaithful.com/anatomy of marriage.
That sound was from the heater in our garage. That was pretty good. That was good.
I
but seriously,
that.
If you need counseling, which you probably all need, please go to getfaithful.com/anatomy of marriage.
All right, let's dive in. Melanie,
yes.
Let's read this question,
Okay.
lady.
Here's the question. It says, what are your thoughts on masturbation without your partner present? We both came from a Christian background and were essentially taught that sexual acts were only for marriage. Now, when we have very different libidos, solo masturbation seems like a method to meet needs, with the caveat that it doesn't interfere with regular intimacy. It's hard to understand if this is a sin or something that can strengthen our marriage. Love, Seth Studley. Just kidding.
Asking for a friend, right?
Asking for a friend.
So, okay, you guys, this is Anatomy of Sex. If you like what you're hearing now, go to patreon.com/anatomy of marriage to get an Anatomy of Sex episode every single week. And I don't know why we're doing this one for the free one, because it's like a topic that can kind of be embarrassing, but we're not going to make it. We're not going to make it.
We're not going to make it embarrassing.
I just hope my mom's not listening. So,
Marie, turn it off.
But she doesn't probably.
You perv.
Anyway. Okay, let's answer this question. First of all, I grew up Christian too, and I believed that stuff like this would be sinful. And now I don't anymore. So there.
The end.
The end. No, I don't think it is anymore. Now, if you're looking at porn and you're addicted to porn 24/7 and all that, yeah, I think that you might have something to work on. Or I might have something to work on. Yeah, you definitely got something to work on, because that doesn't increase connection to your spouse. It doesn't increase pleasure with your spouse. And it doesn't increase connection to yourself.
Right.
Actually, right? So that's my view on it, right? I don't believe solo masturbation is sinful unless you're like doing super weird stuff, or not even sinful. I'm not even going to use that language because I don't kind of believe in that language anymore. I think it's harmful.
Yeah.
How about that?
Yeah.
Harmful. It can be harmful if you're doing it too much, if you're looking at porn all the time, if you're exploiting others and doing like weird shit to, get off, then yeah, it's like, okay, you got a bigger problem than just like, hey, should I whack off or not kind of thing, right? So I want to talk about it in that way. But from a female perspective, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I think I agree. But I do want to talk about the idea of, like, when we had Dr. Tina Shermer Sellers, who runs the Northwest Institute on Intimacy. She's a sex educator. She's amazing. But she was at our Back to Basics boot camp that we held in August. And she talked about, what does she call it? It's not arousal cycles and, like, is there another word I'm forgetting? Because she talked about this idea because someone brought it up. They asked in the live version of the thing that, they were taught that masturbation was like really wrong. But then there's like, but sometimes I'm like aroused and I don't know what to do. And she basically said, she's like, yeah, that's an arousal cycle.
Right.
And I can't remember how she, like, the context that she was answering the question in was like, oh, I know what it was. So it was talking about if the sexual experience for the man in this case was, it was all focused on him because he was so aroused, right? And so she's like, just masturbate and then go have sex with your wife.
Take care of your own arousal.
Take care of your own arousal needs, which is not the same thing necessarily as like libido or desire, right? It's like a different cycle within this larger scope of things. Like, I'm trying to, what are you laughing at?
I think I've talked about this on the show before, but somehow, some way, me and my buddies would call, like if you were aroused, you got that old-fashioned feeling. And I don't know why it's called the old-fashioned feeling, but, we're sitting around talking or whatever. You're like, it's kind of old-fashioned feeling, It's like, you want to have sex, you want to do other stuff kind of thing. I don't know why.
All I can think of is Devin saying that. It's like
Devin
the
and
best.
Matt, if I went to any of my old friends and said, it's an old-fashioned feeling, kind of thing, they'd be like, oh.
That should be our
kind of thing, right? So let's put it in that.
Let's talk about that old-fashioned feeling, guys.
Yeah, let's talk about that old-fashioned feeling. Is it wrong to get that old-fashioned feeling?
Right.
I'm asking.
Right. No, it's not. right or wrong, doesn't matter. It happens.
Right.
The old-fashioned feeling happens to all of us. No one is immune.
Right.
But I want to put it in a different context of not thinking that it's that old-fashioned sinful feeling, right? It's not sinful to have an arousal cycle. And I think what's important here and what Dr. Tina was sort of explaining, which allows for a lot more complexity here, is that what does it look like if we have that old-fashioned feeling and then don't do anything about it? And then we say, well, the Bible tells me...
you get blue balls.
Don't even. So the Bible tells me that my old-fashioned feeling belongs only to my husband or vice versa, right? So I can't, settle my old-fashioned feeling on my own. And then all of a sudden, that old-fashioned feeling of Seth's becomes my burden because it's somehow tied to me now, right? Does that make sense? So that's where I feel like this can get really tricky really quickly if we have it in the context of sin and that like biblical now listen to me. If you're listening to this episode and you're like, oh, they aren't even Christians, find a podcast that's Christian. There's plenty of them, and don't leave us a bad review. You asked us a question, you want an answer. Don't faff around and call me some terrible whatever.
But also, don't I
you
don't
know what
wanna,
I think about that?
I'm not.
I can't make it do it.
Okay. We're not black and white like that, right? It's like I grew up Christian and would consider still to be a Christian. However, my views have expanded a lot. So it's like, okay, does it bring connection and pleasure? Is it healthy? Are you harming others? Is it harmful? Or if I did this thing that we're talking about every single day, every 8 hours a day, would it be helpful or harmful? Right? So then you're like, oh, that would be harmful because that would be out of balance, right? Do I eat steak and eggs every 2 hours? No. Is it wrong or harmful or sinful to eat steak and eggs?
Is it sinful? No.
No, of course it's not.
But
right?
Is it helpful? No.
Right. It's like, it's okay. I'll even reference a biblical thing. Is it what did Paul say? Is it everything is permissible, but not everything is beneficial, right? So that helps me to look at it through that lens, right? Is masturbation wrong? No. Is it the only source of like orgasm and connection that I ever have? Oh, okay. Well, that's kind of messed up, right? Because I'm married and we share a sexuality, not a sexuality, a sexual relationship, an emotional relationship. We are connected in our connection and connected in our pleasure, right?
Yes, I like that, to put that sort of spin on it. And again,
I'm the best, so I was going to get a T-shirt that says that. How positive would that be? I'm the best.
I want to get one that says I smell like victory, whatever our client says. I love that. But I think that we have to allow for more complexity than is it a sin or not, right? I mean, even that, like that verse, Paul says, or whoever it is, everything is permissible, meaning you can do whatever you want. It says it in La Biblia.
All things are permissible.
In the Bible, everything is permissible. What does that mean? Porn? Yeah.
You can.
Heroin? Yeah. Everything is permissible. Everything. But not everything is beneficial. So I think that's where we let's think more complexly. And this is what this person is doing. So I love that.
Yeah,
and I really
awesome.
appreciate them writing in. But let's go back to sort of the more like meat and potatoes of this. How do we manage this? So if it's okay, if this idea is like physiologically helpful, like if it helps our biology, our body, and it helps our relationship, how do we do this, right? So let me just ask you a question. Marie, if you're listening, turn it off. Do you ever get that old-fashioned feeling and I'm not around?
Yeah.
What do you do about it? Write me an email?
Sometimes something happens and sometimes it just goes away.
There's not like a funny term? It's not like old-fashioned feeling followed by like, let's make one up. You get you a sarsaparilla?
Oh boy. No.
Can I tell you a story?
Yeah.
One time when we were in South Carolina.
Have I heard this? Does this
yeah,
have
you
to do
were
with
there.
me?
No, yeah, it was funny.
Okay.
I mean, it won't be funny to you. But we were in South Carolina and we were visiting Seth's family, which is very super Southern. They're like, I can barely understand his brother 10% of the time. And his brother comes up and he had a handful of roots, like a root. And he's like, what was it? Sarsaparilla.
Sarsaparilla.
And that's what they make root beer out of.
Yeah.
And it was the weirdest moment, I think, of my life. I'm like just looking at him and we're standing outside and he's like caught chewing and he's like, sarsaparilla.
No, it's awesome. It's the old ways.
It was
it's really cool. Yeah.
That's what made me think. If you got that old fashioned feeling, what takes that old fashioned feeling and makes it great? Is it like your grits? You got your... Let's make up a saying. It'd be so funny.
I don't know of a saying, but yeah, that happens, right? Which you could translate that into like, hey, person, have you ever been aroused when your girlfriend or your wife wasn't there?
Right. Let's put it in a different context.
Or, hey, wife.
Have you ever been hungry when I'm not home? Have you ever eaten lunch on your own?
Yes.
So have I.
Right.
So I want to put it in a context where it's damaging to be like, you can only eat when I am hungry.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Or, I mean, even that is a really good example because I have, I'm hypoglycemic, whatever. I have low blood sugar stuff all the time. And then also anemia all the time. Like I get low iron.
You need to eat from the cast iron pans that I eat from.
Cook me something from it and I'll eat it. I ain't going to cook nothing. I'll eat Cheerios and wonder why I have low blood sugar.
Right.
But so that is a perfect example because I eat so differently from Seth. But that doesn't mean the way I eat is right and the way he eats is wrong or that we should only eat together. Because if that was the case, one of us is miserable and the other one is not.
Okay. You are proving a really good point, and I don't want to
I'm
divert.
The best.
You are. I don't want to divert from the question, but I think this will be helpful in the context of sex and arousal and desire and stuff. If you, as my wife, said, hey, will you make me something to eat? Mm-hmm. I, in most cases, 95% of the time, would be like, sure, I can do that.
Right.
Like, I love making biscuits, cooking big breakfast size on Sunday mornings. I haven't done that recently, but I want to get back into it. Homemade biscuits, grits, all this stuff, stews. Like, I love making you food and the kids food that like, oh, Dad, this is good. I love that, right? So I have the key to do that. And if you said, hey, would you do that for me? 95% of the time, I'd be like, yeah, no problem, right? And this is really good, and I'm going somewhere with this. So, and basically, we could turn the camera off right now and have this conversation. I want to have a real conversation with you. My desire is higher than yours sexually, right?
Yes. Much higher.
For P to V.
Oh, gosh, yeah.
That. It's real.
Yep.
And you hold that key. Am I correct? So,
I do.
I want to simplify our sexual relationship as I just broke down and simplified me making food for you and the family, right? If I say, hey, I really want to have sex tonight or whenever,
right?
I want you to think of it because in the past, and this has irked me in the past, the past, you, and I think a lot of our other female listeners and also people we've worked with and stuff like that before, make it really contingent upon stuff. And I'm going to be honest, what that has done to me is like, I guess I can just not eat.
It's easier to go to bed hungry.
No, yeah, I can just not eat.
Right.
I don't care about it. And I've really seen how that has affected the things. I've really been feeling this lately.
The things? What does that mean?
Like overall joy of life.
Well, let me say.
No, I'm really serious here, and I think this is a good thing, and hopefully a lot of the you guys will get value from this, and let's like continue this conversation. But I want this is going to sound funny because I'm like, I want you to view sex in your body this way, which is totally messed up and from a male-female perspective. I'm not saying that, but I would love it, and I think it would actually be helpful if you could view sex and our sexual relationship exactly carbon copy of you say, hey, can you make that favorite stew that you make? I'd be like, hell yeah, I can do that. Yes.
Yeah.
And I don't expect anything from you in that.
Right.
Well, yeah, if you go get the groceries and if you clean and if you blah, 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 and all this stuff. I'm like, no, she's asking me for that. I have the power to give it to you or not. I am not going to withhold that from you. So if you, man, I hope this doesn't come across weird, but if you can come to that realization, here's what I want to do. I want my sexual energy and sexual libido to increase because I think that it has decreased because of the like, oh, I don't know. She said it's contingent upon this, and there's going to be this, and blah, blah, and foreplay and all that stuff, which I understand is completely there. And some dickhead dudes have really abused this to be like, you're my wife, you should put out whenever. Okay, I'm not saying that. I'm saying I have a goal to actually have better sex for my own self because when that happens, I am connected in every single thing else. And if you're like, no, hell no, then I'm like, okay, well, let's see. Maybe my approach was weird on that, but shoot down, red team, blue team, this. Is that sexual relationship likened to in any way hey, I can cook really good. You like it when I make food. You're not going to go to like Taco Time or you might, right? But that's no good. That doesn't do anything
Taco
for
Time
any
is
of us.
good.
Or McDonald's or stuff like that. If I have the power to do that, which I do, I will gladly do it. Can you think of the sexual relationship in that way?
Yes, and I think this is going to be an interesting and insightful conversation because as you were saying those things, and especially relating it to food, because I don't love to cook, but I absolutely love to eat, right? And I just don't care about cooking. And I think what's interesting is in the past, and I think our female clients think this as well, and we've sort of espoused this because we also thought it, that if Seth does more foreplay, if he does more chores, if he does more whatever, it will put us in the mood, which we've been told and we have taught, right?
You've said that a million. That's all you've said.
But okay.
I'm mad and I have a lot of emotions about this.
Good. You deserve to. But as I think we are getting the understanding that I'm reaching, again, this is mostly coming from clients. This is from having that internal thought. Because in my mind, it counts for me. Like it ticks boxes when you do actual, like take out the trash or put the dogs, anything related to the dogs, anything related to like kids brushing their teeth, that actually does it ticks like a security box in me that helps make sex easier.
Right.
Which has shifted the way I look at sex because now I look at sex more like, yeah, I'm giving you a meal. That sounds like a thing.
Bacon.
They're giving you a bacon press. So it turns into that. It has turned and made that shift in my head, but not for our clients. Our clients still really struggle because I think most of them are waiting for that feeling. And it's not a feeling. You don't get inspired to cook me a soup. You just get up and do it, right?
Well, sometimes I do. Like
but
if
you know what I mean?
Here's the liken. So I have plans for chicken stews. I'm going to make like a big thing of like homemade chili for one thing. And like, these are like all meals that everybody likes, right? You're not going to make them and that's fine. In fact, I can make them better. So
a lot better.
And our kids aren't going to make them either, right? But everybody will enjoy it, right? And I enjoy it. So I'm taking the lead. And that is likened to you feeling kind of in the mood. You're like, hey, I'm going to shave my legs. I'm going to put on some whatever. And you're
put on some strings.
Some strings?
Like lingerie.
Some celery
strings.
I don't know. You know what I'm saying? So there's like all kinds of analogies here. And man, I had no idea we were going to be talking about this, but I'm really getting like internally kind of emotional about this because it's like, and I think it is really frustrating. Like if sex is one ultimate experience of emotion that a man is allowed to give, when it's like, yeah, I'll have sex with you if you do this and do this and do this and do this. It's like,
right.
I feel like I'm working my ass off in all other ways, out at a job, out at a thing. I'm not being a douchebag when I'm coming home and getting drunk and saying this won't work and blah, 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 and all that stuff. And the one thing that is most important to me, it's like I have to do extra work and extra work and extra work. And if you do say, Leia, let's have sex, then it just feels like I'm being thrown a bone, you know?
Right, yeah.
And I'm like,
yeah.
F this. I literally don't care. So I turn that like sexual part off of me, right? Wanting it, actually wanting the emotional connection more than just like an orgasm,
right?
You know, because obviously that feels great, but the emotional connection is so much more important. And ladies, you too, Melanie, if you guys could understand like the actual deep well, and I'm not throwing a pity party here, whatever, I'm tough as hell and all that stuff, but the actual deep well of a guy that like can know his own emotions and then be like, okay, I'm gonna be super vulnerable here and share them. It's like I almost think that this is gonna sound funny. I almost think that that is the most difficult thing a man can do, and we have almost far more capability and expansive possibility of showing emotions if we're allowed.
Mm-hmm.
How about that?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I really do.
Mm-hmm. Are you going to cry?
No.
Are you sure?
Yeah, I'm not going to cry.
You can cry.
I don't feel like crying right now. No, totally. I'm not like that kind of emotional, but like, oh shit, that's a real realization. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know. It's just, I want our sexual relationship to be nothing like from porn or anything like, oh, I'm comparing things or this or that or whatever. I want it to be like, hey, I have that old fashioned feeling. Let's go connect. Well, you got to wash the dishes and do all this other bullshit and do this. I'm like,
well, I will say, let's zoom into just that little point there. And we talked about this on a couple episodes ago. Like, I want my husband to be at his best all the time, and I want to be at my best for my husband, right? Whoever that is, whoever my husband is.
It's me. Newsflash.
So that is a part of like, I'm attracted to, you know, someone who doesn't leave their shit around the house, right? Like that's a part of it. So I don't want to ignore that because I don't want men or women to abuse that little element. So Seth just said it was about that old fashioned feeling, you know? Right. So we want to find balance in that. But what was that sound? Did you just whistle?
I don't think so.
But I think also in there, I want to make sure that we are really addressing the sexual cycle or the sexual desire or whatever is just like hunger. It's a biological, it's one of the needs. What's it called? It's like a
like, are you thinking of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs or the four basic needs?
It's like the four basic needs. It's like to reproduce is like an actual biological wired in need. Yes. Right. And it's not. So if a man has that old fashioned feeling, it's not because he's a perv. It's because he's a human. Right. Right. And it's, you know, like just like diets. Some people eat different things than other people. Right. We have different levels of this desire in us. This arousal cycle is different for everybody. If we were to just treat it like what it is, which is a biological, like physiological, I don't know, I use those words interchangeably.
No, that's true.
But however, if we were just to treat it like that, it would take away all the shame. Like there's not, it'd be like saying, oh, it's such a sin that I'm hungry.
Right. So the only way that we can treat it like that, if other things are in balance, because we are all so messed up at times to where like, oh, now I'm hypersexual. I'm addicted to porn. I'm a sexologist, a sex addict, or whatever. Or I'm an alcoholic. I'm a drug addict. All this stuff.
A shopaholic.
Any of those things. So, because that's coming from a place of lack. So, and probably this is even like sexually attractive to men and women. Like, oh, I have all my shit together, and just as much as I like to eat 3 times a day or whatever, that's not even a thing. I mean, from like Western culture it is. But as much as I like to eat and have hunger, I also have a sexual desire. And this isn't coming. So if I'm hungry, is it coming from a place because I am depressed, anxious, or like just totally out of whack and out of balance? Sure, I can have a food addiction, which that means I'm out of balance and stuff like that. But if I'm like, oh man, slept 8 hours, haven't eaten in 10 hours, I'm kind of hungry. Right. That is the most normal thing ever. Right. Correct? Right. So say that all other spheres, biopsychosocial, spiritual, cultural, are in balance, and I go, yeah, I got a high sex drive. It's like having a high metabolism. Right. Like, whoa, that dude can eat 3,000 calories a day and he never gets fat. Right. Okay, that's just his biology, right? So, and on the opposite of that, maybe I don't have an increased sexual drive. You know, he doesn't eat a lot. Like I'm tons of people like they don't eat much. Right. Are they messed up? Fasting. Are they out of balance or whatever? No, intermittent fasting is on purpose, but I know. It can be like your baseline of stuff, right? So what we're talking about is all of this in balance. Now, no dude is allowed to be like, yeah, see, Seth said this and that's that. But all your other stuff is just out of whack. You're a douchebag. You don't listen. You're not supportive. You're not encouraging. You're dismissive. All this other stuff. And I want to get to a point, and I think that we're on that trajectory, and we're always improving. No one is perfect. We're always improving, right? We're always making course corrections. I want to get to a point to literally where if I got that old-fashioned feeling, right? It's like, hey, let's have sex. You know? Because everything else is in order, in place. Yeah. We're communicating, all this stuff. I'm not leaving shit around. Yeah. I'm like actually paying attention to what your needs and desires are. Right. Right. And then it's like this. I imagine a utopia of just, man, things are running so smooth here. You know what I'm saying? Financial, connection, all that stuff. Sex.
Studleytopia.
Studleytopia. Exactly.
Yes, and I really like that because, again, in the past, I was under the sort of, I think it's like societal, cultural idea that I would somehow be wooed into wanting sex, and I just don't want it. I just don't care about it. But will I lovingly, joyfully, happily, fully engaged have sex with you because you want sex? Yeah, I can do that. And I do that. And I say, like, I don't have bad sex, so I'm not going to have, you're not going to say, hey, I'm feeling that old-fashioned feeling, and I'd be like, oh, fine, right? It's not that, because that's not Studleytopia vibes, right?
Right.
So I think that this question is really awesome because it starts to allow the complexity of, like, can we masturbate alone? I don't know. Can you eat lunch alone? Like, is that a sin? Is that okay? Again, if you're eating lunch in a strip club, maybe not a great choice. If you're eating Twinkies for lunch and that's it, and Mountain Dew and Twinkies and that's all you're eating, maybe not ideal. But I just really appreciate this question in the beginning of complexity that sort of allows us all to see.
Yeah.
And I will say, I think that I have been very, very guilty of really thinking that somehow Seth's behavior could, like, ignite my own flame, right? There are things, again, that you can,
right? I can do things that are sexually attractive.
Only, I mean, I think I was like, how about this? We'll do it in flame sizes. I'm like a match. You're like a torch, some sort of blowtorch. And I think that the
pun intended.
The pun is intended. And I was under the impression that somehow he could finagle something and I would become a blowtorch too. And I just don't. I can't.
Oh, that is so interesting. We might have to make this one go farther than 30 minutes, but that is so interesting because how we grew up in our marriage, like not grow up, like, matured in our marriage from the early days till now, is you wanted me to lead so many things and you were expecting me to do everything. And I'll say this with love, you didn't have as much ownership on things as you do now.
Yeah.
Right? Oh, I'm not horny. It's Seth's fault. Like,
right.
What?
Oh,
what?
Or even if it's not even if I'm not horny, it's your job to make me that way.
Right.
Like it's somehow not mine.
Yeah. So it's again, this goes back to the personal responsibility, extreme ownership, and the differentiated state that is much more healthy than the bull crap we learned about marriage and the church and culture and all this stuff. And it's like, oh my gosh, I went on a rant just like recently on Facebook. It's like, we can change.
Yeah.
I mean, we were on a podcast earlier today. It's like, yeah, one of the number one things is like having the confidence, the inner knowing that you can change. It's not change. Positive change isn't just for that person on TV or on a podcast or on Instagram or that. If they did it, so can you, right? And if you don't do it, somebody else will, right? I say this all the time. If a potential coaching client doesn't work with us, there's another one that will. 2 days later, they'll sign on, they'll kick ass for 90 days and like see changes they've been wanting for super long. If you don't do it, somebody else will. And if we don't take the charge on this stuff and realize it for ourselves and don't put every ounce of like responsibility for things we freaking want on our partner, then you can. I kind of lost my train of thought there. I was going on a rant, but you can do it.
Extreme
right?
ownership. Do
Extreme
it yourself,
ownership,
people.
Yeah.
But anyway, this has been a really great question. I really appreciate it. If you have a question for the show, send it in to hello@anatomyofmarriage.com.
We're not going to go on?
Then, no, we are not. And then we can make it another episode.
Okay.
But thank you so much for joining us. If you appreciate this show at all, I want you to go to iTunes right now and rate and review the show. I want to hit that 1,000 ratings mark. I don't care what it takes.
I know. Let's
but
go,
then
people.
More importantly, if you want more of Anatomy of Sex, go to patreon.com/Anatomy of Sex to get a weekly episode if you sign up.
You said it
What
wrong.
did I say?
Patreon.com/Anatomy of Marriage to get more episodes just
Yes.
like this. You guys can support what you love.
Yes.
Have listener questions answered on the show and get all that info for you to grow, for you to have more connection and more pleasure in your sex life with your spouse. So we love you guys. Thank you so much. Again, email anything, hello@anatomyofmarriage.com, and we'll talk to you soon, guys.
All right, bye.
Later.